Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
The relationship between the United States and Canada was in a very difficult place. It was the worst it had been in many, many years. These two important neighbors, who share the longest border in the world, faced serious problems. The main reason for this trouble was a trade war. This trade war began because President Donald Trump put new taxes, called tariffs, on goods moving between the two countries. These tariffs made products more expensive and hurt many businesses and people. The economies in both the U.S. and Canada were suffering greatly. Companies that relied on smooth trade between the nations found it hard to operate. For example, Canada sends a very large part of its goods to the United States. More than 77% of everything Canada sells to other countries goes to its southern neighbor. So, the tariffs were especially painful for Canadian industries. American companies also felt the negative effects. They had to pay higher prices for important materials they bought from Canada, such as steel and aluminum. This made their own products more expensive to make and sell. Everyone knew that a solution was urgently needed to help both economies grow again. Because of this very serious economic situation, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney made a special trip. He traveled to Washington, D.C., to the White House for a crisis meeting with President Donald Trump. This meeting was incredibly important. The future of trade and cooperation across North America was hanging in the balance. Many people expected the meeting to be very difficult, maybe even leading to more disagreements. There was a lot of tension and bad feeling between the two countries. Prime Minister Carney walked into the Oval Office on October 7, 2025. He carried the heavy responsibility of finding a path forward. Everyone watched to see what would happen. But what came out of that meeting was quite unexpected. Instead of more conflict, the conversation between the two leaders led to a surprising new beginning. It offered a chance for a fresh start, moving away from the damaging trade war and towards a hopeful future for both countries. 2. The two leaders. President Donald Trump was the leader of the United States. He was well known for his strong ideas about trade. His view was that the United States should always be the top priority in economic dealings. President Trump had made tough comments about Canada before. He often viewed the relationship in terms of business, not just a close alliance. He had even once suggested, perhaps not seriously, that Canada could become America's 51st state. His policies, especially the new taxes he put on imported goods, called tariffs, created many problems. These tariffs greatly harmed trade between the two countries. Experts in economics said these taxes caused a major break in the global trading system. Trump's leadership style was direct and often unpredictable, which made international talks challenging. In Canada, Mark Carney took office as Prime Minister in March 2025. He became Prime Minister after Justin Trudeau stepped down. Mr. Carney had a unique past, very different from a typical politician. For many years, he worked in high finance. He spent 13 years at a big company called Goldman Sachs. Later, he held very important positions as the head of central banks. He served as the governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. This long experience gave him deep knowledge of money, markets, and economic issues. It was clear that President Trump had a respect for Prime Minister Carney's financial background and his understanding of global economies. The two leaders brought very different styles to their roles. President Trump was known for his firm tone and often used public challenges in his approach. Prime Minister Carney, on the other hand, preferred a careful and practical way of solving problems. He aimed for solutions that made sense economically and avoided unnecessary conflicts. He was often described as a strategic pragmatist by those who watched his diplomacy. He focused on concrete proposals rather than public debates, showing a calm but strong demeanor. They both came into their positions inheriting a very strained relationship between their nations. The trade war had caused much pain, and feelings were tense. The bond between the United States and Canada was at one of its weakest points in many decades. This difficult situation set the stage for their important meeting. Both leaders knew they needed to find a new path for North America, moving away from past disagreements and towards a more cooperative future. 3. The important meeting. On October 7, 2025, the important meeting took place. It was held in the Oval Office at the White House. President Donald Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney met for 32 minutes. Many people thought this meeting would be difficult because the relationship between their countries was at a very low point. However, something unexpected happened. President Trump spoke in a different way than before. He had often spoken tough about Canada and its trade. But this time, he called Prime Minister Carney a world-class leader. He said that while they might be competitors, there was also a great love for each other between their nations. This shift in how President Trump spoke was a clear change and surprised many observers. The two leaders talked about many important things. A main topic was trade. The ongoing trade war, with its tariffs on goods like steel and aluminum, was causing problems for businesses in both countries. American factories were paying more for materials, and Canadian companies found it harder to sell their goods to the United States. Both leaders needed to find ways to make trade easier again. They also discussed energy, looking for ways their countries could work together on power resources. Beyond money, they also spoke about safety and security. The Arctic region was becoming more important, and countries like Russia and China were showing more activity there. Canada and the United States needed to cooperate to keep the Arctic safe. They also talked about border security. Canada had a successful plan that had made illegal border crossings much lower, down by 99%. This showed that working together on security could bring good results. They discussed sharing information between police and intelligence groups to fight crime and terrorism. A personal connection seemed to grow between President Trump and Prime Minister Carney. Both men were known as deal makers. Prime Minister Carney had a background in big banks, managing important financial decisions. This experience seemed to earn President Trump's respect. Trump saw Carney as someone who could be very nice but also very nasty, which for Trump meant he was a tough, smart negotiator. This mutual respect for their abilities to make deals helped them talk openly and look for solutions. The meeting showed that even when times are tough, leaders can find common ground. 4. Talking about money. The meeting between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Mark Carney happened because of big money problems. A trade war had made things very difficult for both the United States and Canada. This was a bad time for their relationship, probably the worst in many years. The economic struggles affected many people and businesses every day. President Trump's policies, especially new taxes called tariffs, were hurting businesses. These tariffs made goods more expensive to buy and sell between the two countries. Economists said these taxes were breaking the world's trading system. Many companies faced problems, and jobs were at risk. Canada felt the pain strongly. Most of what Canada sold to other countries went to the United States. So when the U.S. put tariffs on Canadian products, it was a big hit. The Bank of Canada, which handles the country's money, had to lower interest rates. They also warned about how unclear the future looked because of all the changing tariff threats. Canadian workers in many fields saw their jobs threatened. But the problems were not only in Canada. American businesses were also suffering. Making things became more costly for them. For example, the prices for Canadian steel, aluminum, and wood went up. Industries like building homes and making cars felt this strongly. These American companies asked President Trump to find a way to fix the problem. They needed help because their costs were too high and their profits were shrinking. This shared economic pain pushed the two leaders together. Both countries needed a solution. They understood that continuing the trade war would only make things worse. They had to find a new way to work together so their economies could grow again. This need for growth was a strong reason for their talks. The meeting was about more than just tariffs. President Trump and Prime Minister Carney talked about a bigger plan for how their economies could work together. They asked their teams to create a deal to end the steel and aluminum tariffs. They also discussed working together on energy. This showed they wanted to solve old problems and find new ways to help each other. They both knew a strong economy in one country helped the other, too, creating jobs and wealth for their citizens. This shared need for a solution brought President Trump and Prime Minister Carney to the table. It made them talk seriously about money and the future of both countries' economies. They aimed for a positive change for all. 5. Working together for safety. President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Mark Carney talked about more than just trade and money. They also spoke about important safety and security issues. Both leaders knew it was vital for their countries to work together to keep people safe. This cooperation was seen as a strong base for their entire relationship, showing a shared purpose beyond business. A big topic was the Arctic region. Both countries share a long border, and this includes parts of the Arctic. Recent activities by other countries, like Russia and China in the Arctic, created new concerns for North American security. This meant that the United States and Canada needed to cooperate more closely than ever before in that northern area. They agreed to build on their long history of defense cooperation, which includes joint efforts like the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD. This shared defense helps protect both nations from threats coming from the air and the sea. Border security was another success story they talked about. Canada had put a lot of effort and money, about $1.3 billion, into a special plan to make its border safer. This plan had great results. The number of illegal crossings from Canada into the U.S. dropped by 99% from its highest point in June 2024. This big reduction showed that smart plans and joint effort could make a real difference. This success then became a good example for expanding cooperation on other important problems, such as stopping illegal drugs from crossing the border and fighting terrorism together. The leaders also discussed how police and intelligence groups from both countries could work even better together. Both the U.S. and Canada face similar dangers. These include international crime groups that operate across borders, attacks on computer systems and important data, and the very serious issue of fentanyl drugs, which cause harm in both nations. Groups like the Canadian Border Services Agency and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police already work closely with their American partners. This teamwork showed how important it was to share information and strategies to protect their citizens. This strong focus on security gave more meaning to their economic discussions. Security cooperation is not just a one-time thing. It needs ongoing relationships and deep trust between government groups. President Trump and Prime Minister Carney both clearly wanted to rebuild and strengthen this trust. They understood that a safe North America depends on everyone working together effectively and continuously. 6. A good plan. Prime Minister Mark Carney's plan for the White House meeting was very careful. He knew he needed a new way to talk with President Donald Trump. Carney had a special background that helped him greatly. Before becoming Prime Minister, he worked for many years in international banking. He was the head of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. He also spent 13 years at Goldman Sachs, a big financial company. This experience meant he understood major money problems very well. President Trump seemed to respect this financial knowledge. Carney's approach was called strategic pragmatism. This meant he looked for smart, workable ways to deal with problems instead of having public arguments. He arrived at the White House wearing a red tie. This was a small but important sign, showing his careful thought. Carney wanted to make deals that helped everyone. He came to the meeting with clear ideas for fixing trade problems. He always aimed to protect Canada's main interests, like its independence and economy, while also being open to new solutions. He understood that true success meant finding common ground. For many weeks before the meeting, Canadian officials worked in secret. They planned every detail of the meeting. This quiet diplomatic work helped arrange the important talks between the two leaders. Carney's team studied all the economic facts carefully. They prepared special proposals that would help both the United States and Canada. These proposals aimed to give President Trump some wins, like easing tariffs, but still keep Canada strong and protect its economy. Carney was ready to make smart compromises. These were things other Canadian leaders might not have considered. For example, he was ready to talk about energy cooperation in a new way. He understood that the United States wanted energy security. This was a change from past Canadian ideas about natural resources. He also used a Buy Canadian policy, which showed he understood economic nationalism. This balance of working together and protecting Canada's independence made the talks successful. It set a good path for future talks, like the review of the USMCA trade agreement. 7. A new beginning. The meeting between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Mark Carney ended with important news. Both leaders made it clear that they wanted a new start for the relationship between the United States and Canada. This was a big change after many difficult months. The hope was to move forward, leaving past disagreements behind. This new direction promised better relations and more cooperation for the future of North America. It marked a turning point after a period of tension and trade disputes. One of the first agreements was about trade. President Trump and Prime Minister Carney told their teams to work quickly. Their main goal was to create a deal to stop the special taxes on steel and aluminum. These taxes, known as tariffs, had caused many problems for businesses and workers in both countries. Ending them would help industries like construction and car manufacturing on both sides of the border. This step showed that the leaders were ready to solve real economic problems together for mutual benefit. Another key part of this new beginning was a strong focus on energy cooperation. Canada has vast energy resources, including hydroelectric power, oil, and natural gas. The United States has advanced technology and a large market for energy. The leaders saw that working together on energy could bring great benefits to both nations. This cooperation could make North America stronger and more secure in its energy supply. It promised future joint projects and shared economic growth, moving beyond simple trade disagreements. This good meeting also set a very positive tone for the future review of the main trade deal in North America. This important agreement is known as the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA. It is planned for a review in 2026. Before this meeting, many people worried about what the review might bring. Now, President Trump and Prime Minister Carney showed that they wanted to make the USMCA even better. They aimed to update it and strengthen North American trade, rather than creating more arguments. This new spirit of cooperation was a clear departure from before. It was a step away from past arguments and towards a future where both countries could work as true partners. The leaders showed that even after tough times, a new beginning was possible. They had successfully laid the groundwork for a more hopeful and prosperous path forward for the two neighboring nations. 8. What happens next? The meeting between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Mark Carney was a very important moment for the United States and Canada. It truly changed their relationship. Before, their ties were difficult, marked by trade problems. But after October 7, 2025, things began to look hopeful. This meeting started a new partnership, a fresh way for the two countries to work together. It was not just about trade and money. It also covered shared safety and how both countries could become stronger. This special summit showed that even when things are at their worst, leaders can find solutions. President Trump and Prime Minister Carney found a way to talk and agree, moving from a time of conflict to a time of cooperation. This marks a new chapter for North America. Both leaders made promises to solve many problems and to build a better future together. Their handshake opened the door for many good things. However, the journey ahead is not easy. Making promises is one thing. Turning them into real action is another. The leaders' teams must now work hard to make these plans happen. There will be many challenges on this path. People in both countries, like business owners and workers, have different ideas and hopes about the changes. Domestic politics and local interests might make it hard to agree on every small detail. Sometimes new problems can appear in the world, making things more complex for both nations. These factors can make the path forward difficult and slow. The summit left a clear and important message. It showed that good talks, smart thinking, and a strong will can help countries make progress. It is a valuable lesson for other nations around the world. Even in a difficult global situation, leaders can choose to work together instead of being in conflict. This meeting teaches us that understanding and clever actions can create strong, lasting partnerships. The event highlighted that skilled diplomacy, when backed by leaders who truly want to make a difference, can open new doors for better relations. The future of this new partnership depends a lot on how well the promises are kept and how diligently both sides work together. It will show if this turning point truly created a lasting change for North America. It is a foundation now, and the building must begin. What do you think is the biggest challenge for the U.S. and Canada in keeping this new partnership strong and making all their agreements happen?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.